Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Univision stage for our 12 o'clock panel, Storytelling in the Age of Equity, moderated by Raquelle Zuzarte from Equity Project for All.
I love giving blowjobs to sandwiches.
I love sacrificing my dignity for a drink.
I love sleeping with guys that don't know my name.
The pursuit of happiness, just as our forefathers wanted.
I hope when my daughter grows up that she has friends just like these.
The key to my heart? A man that smells like a vagina.
I'd sell my body for a burger. Nothing makes me hotter than watching a guy get his head blown off.
I'm only here for your entertainment.
What goes great with this dish? My butt.
Obviously, my cleavage can sell anything.
When I reach into my designer handbag, you know I'm naked.
This shirt looks too good for pants. Peekaboo. Like what you see?
Later. Where are we? That was a video created by Madonna Badger from Badger and Winters, November 9, 2015, and it's 2018. I can't say that word. I wasn't allowed to say it, so I'll use another S word instead. I'm going to use another S word that we all love. I'm going to use an S word that actually is a word that makes us human. And before I do that, I have to go through the sea of hashtags that we've been exposed to in the last 5, 3, 2, 1 years, including Me Too. Same, S-H-I-T, more hashtags. Today, we're going to be talking about the S word that's called storytelling. Storytelling in the age of equity. And today, I'm proud to introduce to you 4 equity crusaders who've made their way into this hall today to talk to you about what it's going to take to get rid of the other S word. So I'd like to introduce to you, first of all, the storyteller, Laura Mullen, Executive Vice President, Lifestyle and Hispanic Networks, Ad Sales, NBC Universal. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Pentagoso, the brand builder, Global Brand Director, SAP. And next, the creator, Karuna Rawal, President, Leo Burnett. And we can't do anything in this world without a catalyst, and here is the catalyst, Wade Davis, ex-NFL player and diversity inclusion champion. All right, so here we are. You're the chosen ones to be part of this big crusade towards telling the stories that really capture equity. And I think I'm going to start with a story from 1935. and a man called Leo Burnett, who started an agency with a big vision. And his vision really was that what helps people helps the world. So Karuna, every day at Leo Burnett, you are charged with making brands come to life and giving meaning back to people. Can you tell me, let's start the story today with a story that you feel really has done that in the last couple of years.
So there are a lot of stories I could talk about, but I think my favorite one, the one I'm closest to and I think has had a pretty powerful effect, is the Always Like a Girl campaign. I think probably most of you are familiar with it, but it's one that's near and dear to my heart because I worked on it personally as the lead strategist over, I guess it's now 4 years ago. And it's a campaign that I think really came at a time when this conversation was just beginning. And as Raquelle pointed out, there's and when you look at the sea of hashtags, I think there's two ways to look at that, right? One is, oh my God, it's everywhere. On the other hand, I think it's important that we're all talking about it, and maybe not every single one is doing what it's meant to do, but I certainly feel like when we started this work on Always, we had an important message we wanted to deliver, and it was really, going back to the words you said, it was really finding both the brand truth and the human truth and finding that intersection between those two, because we were at a time when Dove was already out there talking about real beauty, and we really needed to find a way to make this brand relevant for the younger audience because it was her mom's brand, and we had to figure out a way to really think about how do we connect with her. So maybe we should take a look at it, and then we can talk about it some more.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Hi, Erin. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So as we look back at, it's interesting, you see the data in there around a girl's confidence plummets during puberty. And what's amazing is, we had that data, the brand had that data for ages. And so it was really about, if we just put the piece of data out there without figuring out how to tell the story to make it relevant in today's environment, I think it wouldn't have resonated as well. And so there were a number of things that we really dug into. We wanted to really understand what was going on there, and what we uncovered was really this, and you see it there, you see men, you see older women, we're all guilty, right? It's everywhere, and we wanted to figure out how do we start to change the conversation. And I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of discussion and debate about, Always had never done a spot that didn't, do the side-by-side demo with the blue goo, and so we really had to think about, how are we gonna talk about this message and stand for something bigger than just the functional benefit that we'd always stood for. Always is a great product and it has all the functional benefits, but we weren't connecting emotionally. So we needed to get to that, how to tell the story in a way that would resonate emotionally. And I think, again, going back to the quote you started with, the great thing was it was built on a solid foundation. The brand was doing amazing work with girls around puberty education for 30 years in over 65 countries, but we weren't leveraging some of that knowledge. So we were very careful when we built this because we wanted to make sure we weren't just, femvertising or femwashing. We were actually building a true purpose-driven brand. We were just bringing the purpose to life in a way that made all of us stop and think. And the thing I think we're really proud of is, before we showed the film to girls, 19% of them thought doing something like a girl was a positive thing. And after, it went up to 76%. And I think we've really, the thing I love about it is the client gave us a brief to change the world one girl at a time. And we feel like we really accomplished that through this work, so.
Oh, it's a great example, and I know also speaking to you that your brand equity measurements doubled, and
Yep.
At the end of the day, that's what we want. We want an increase in equity all around,
Right.
return on financial equity, return on brand equity, and return on human equity, and that's a key aspect. So Laura, as the storyteller and overseeing around it with NBCU across the most incredible assets in the area of entertainment, news, and sports. NBCU have made such a great stride in terms of representation, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I know you have some new initiatives that you're embarking on. I'd love to hear more.
Yes, so storytelling and telling a story from all points of view, diverse points of view, is really important at NBC Universal, and you'll see it in whether it's news, entertainment, sports, that we are working in bringing more women in front of and behind the camera. So one of the things we're doing is Female Forward, which is taking more women. Only 21% of scripted dramas have women directors. And so Female Forward is putting more women behind the camera and directing and telling the story from a woman's point of view. That's one thing. And then also in front of the camera, right. I just saw you showed Viviana Villa, she is the first woman ever to broadcast the World Cup in any language. She has almost 20 years of broadcasting cred for football or soccer, and had never been asked to do broadcasting for the World Cup. And this year, Telemundo brought her, and the audience loved her. And so, first time ever in 2018 having a woman broadcaster of the World Cup, but it's important to hear her point of view. And so, and consumers loved it. I mean, almost half of the audience for the World Cup on Telemundo is female. So they responded well. And so, these kinds of initiatives, I mean, you can take it also to our executives. Mm-hmm. We have multiple women chairmen reporting into our CEO, Steve Burke, who I always say is gender blind. He just, wants the best people to get the job done. So you have my boss, Linda Yaccarino, who is the chairman of ad sales, responsible for nearly $10 billion of ad revenue. You have Bonnie Hammer, who is longtime chairman for cable entertainment. Francis Barrick, who oversees the lifestyle brands in cable. Deborah Turness from News in front of the camera. You have the first ever morning, I mean, you can't believe it, but like 2018, you have Hoda and Savannah on Today. So there's just so many behind and front and leading the business at NBCU. And the reason why is because diversity, gender equality is good for business. And so having different points of view, whether it's people of color, gender, sexual orientation, is very important on a team, and we recognize that. And so I'm representing today the female initiative, and after seeing that first video, I was like, oh dear. What do I say? But what we do say at NBCU, and why I think I'm often chosen as a spokesperson, is because we have to look at the positive things that we're doing. Mm-hmm. We can look in the rearview mirror and look in the past, and yes, we need to, as a guidepost, to get better, but there are so many things that we're doing that even if I look at where I started at NBCU almost 6 years ago to today, and these different examples that I've given you, it really makes me so proud that I've been at this company and seeing the change and getting greater momentum.
Yeah, and we have a nice recap of that. Let's take a look.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
you're with me, women, let me hear you say. Ladies all across the world, listen up, we're looking for recruits. If you're with me, let me see your hands. Get up and salute. Get your killer heels, sneakers, pumps, lace up your boots. Representing all the women. Salute, salute. Let's headshot. Salute. Let's headshot. Salute. Let's headshot. Representing all the women. Salute, salute.
That we worked with the See Her organization, the ANA See Her organization. That promo ran throughout the Olympics with the See Her hashtag credited on the bottom, and then sponsored by some of the See Her members, including Procter & Gamble. And they were really happy to support the Olympics, because the Olympics actually, the female sports, the Winter Olympics, women's sports, even the summer sports and with gymnastics, do as well as, if not better in certain cases, than men's sports. Right. So the Olympics is really an opportunity for women to shine in sports. And so they came up with the ideas, we need to highlight all these unbelievable superstars that are female at the Olympics. And See Her was coming out and doing the same thing, wanting to change in a positive way that women are portrayed in media, in both programming and in advertising. And this was really a great way to bring it to work together and bring it to the forefront, and something that we were all so proud of.
I think, the more images we see of, the diverse talent, men, women, and across all the different areas in terms of not only gender, but race and LGBT, sexual preference, disability, the more we feel that everyone feels included. And inclusion is a key part. And
well, it's just one thing I just want to add to that is just that it, again, having women or diverse people in positions of power, that idea came from Jenny Storms, who is the CMO of NBC Sports. And having a woman's perspective as a CMO, she's like, why don't we tell the story of these women? Look at the ratings. But this was a unique point of view, again, in 2018.
So I'll just build on one other point on that. So our team on Always, it's one of the things we're really proud of, was an entire all-female team. And our favorite part was when we got up on stage at Cannes. I think we were one of the few teams that was entirely all women. Not surprising given the product, but you'd be surprised at how many teams are not. And so that was a big part of, I think, why we brought the storytelling that we did to that campaign.
So let's talk about men. And let's talk about, what is it that prevents some men, not all, from engaging with this in this discussion. Catalyst, which is a leading organization in terms of the empowerment of women in the workplace, released a report recently entitled Engaging Men with Gender Initiatives. And that report uncovered a couple of things that prevents men from engaging. One of them is this tendency of thinking of the whole thing as a game, a zero-sum game, where if women are winning, then men are losing, instead of seeing it as a win for all. The other big reason is apathy. They believe that it's either not an issue or they don't see the inequity. Wade, when you think through these issues and in your role in the arena of sports and then also now as a vocal advocate, what are your thoughts? What do men need to do, and what is it that what roadblocks need to be removed?
I would say one is that we actually need to, as Brittany Cooper would say, do some emotional labor and to really understand, like, why do we feel that it's a zero-sum game, and really start to educate ourselves about the fact that it's not a zero-sum game, and that if we can build something like the internet, right? If we can put a person on the moon, we can actually make a new pie, where it's not actually, as Gloria Steinem says, an us against them style of attitude. I think also that we have to be honest and say that we're living in a certain level of fear right now the fact that the Me Too movement has actually changed the goalposts. No longer can men actually say what's appropriate and inappropriate. Women actually have an equal voice in saying what's inappropriate and appropriate, and we're being held accountable of our actions. It's no longer these ideas are being swept under the table. And the last thing that I'll say, and I've been saying this a lot, is that men have to understand that the Me Too movement is about men. It's women who are laying themselves bare to educate us and to hopefully that we will wake up and actually change our actions and our attitudes towards what they have already been known has been happening in the workplace and beyond.
Right, so maybe it should be #MeToo and #MenToo. So we think about their role. And in talking about that, who has been a role model for you when you think about, men who've really been brave and taken a stand?
So one is Colin Kaepernick, right? I think that he really embodies this idea. So if you think about the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, all of these movements are not about the individuals who are advocating. It's to wake up the other. Black Lives Matter is to wake up white people to say these things have been happening on your watch and you're doing nothing about them. The gender equality movement is about men saying, hey, like, do something. You are in charge. You are in power. You actually need to give up something, which is your own inability to reflect about how this work is impacting you. And I think that we have to do that emotional labor to own the fact that we have built an entire institution, all of these systems, to benefit us. There is no neutral in the workplace or anywhere. Like, it is fact that we ask women to make the business case for diversity and inclusion. What the truth is there's no business case for men, it just is. Right? The men are just thought of as capable. So how can we kind of flip this on its head and say, no more asking for data. The data's been out there since 1980. Nothing has changed. How do we make these issues personal so that we can start to change how we respond to them?
Tell us more about your personal journey, Wade, and how you've come to where you are today.
Yeah. So I'm a former NFL player. I was an athlete throughout my entire life. I'm someone who knew that he was gay in high school, but didn't feel that the world would ever accept me for being an athlete and for also being gay. I signed as a free agent to play for the Tennessee Titans, the team from Washington, and the Seattle Seahawks. I played for 4 years. When I retired, I became the NFL's first LGBT inclusion consultant. I run my own business now, so now I consult for the NFL, for Google, for Netflix, for a lot of different organizations, and my work is centered at the intersection of sexism and homophobia, and really trying to engage men in having vulnerable, authentic conversations that allow us to start to show up differently in the workplace.
And tell me more about the work that you're doing with the UN as well, because that's an exciting development.
Yeah, so I'm an ambassador with UN Women, with Rachel Roy and Zoe Zeldano, and a lot of other amazing folks. So I've built a 6-session training module in partnership with UN Women to take men on a journey to understand what are the actual tangible steps that we can take to remove the barriers in the workplace that women face. It's not enough to actually say that you're an ally, because what people want is you to be an actual advocate. Like, an advocate means that you are taking tangible steps. So how do you start to learn how to flex your style as a leader? How do you start to focus on growth? And how do you learn that all women don't want to be led the same, that all folks of color don't want to be led the same? How do you understand that when we often say things like gender equality, we're focused on white women? Like, how do you start to really expand your thinking and understand, like, what does it really mean to be a leader in an organization that can lead a diverse a flock of people?
Yeah, it's a big journey, and there's been a lot of discussion about who has to take the responsibility to get this done. Joe, I know within SAP, there's been a lot of discussion around that point, and in terms of brand building, Edelman released a study just in the last 24 hours talking about 40% of consumers actually will choose to buy a brand from a company they believe that stands for something, whether it's political or societal. And 53% believe that of all the stakeholders in our society, business has the power to solve it, more than government, more than NGOs, more than any other group. And given that responsibility, I'm curious to hear from you, which brands do you think have done a good job of standing for something and delivering on it?
So one example that comes to mind, and many of you might be familiar with those, this initiative that was done by State Street Global. They actually commissioned a statue to be made called the Fearless Girl, and you're seeing her up there. So this, young girl facing down the iconic bull in Wall Street, hands on hip and ponytail swaying. And it really is remarkable to me that something like this from State Street could capture people's attention, could get to immediately become a symbol for women's strength and leadership. The data point about this, 12 billion tweets in the first, over 1 billion tweets in the first 12 hours. Over 1 billion tweets in the first 12 hours. I think it takes a lot of courage for brands to go out there and start putting these issues forward. You would think that this would be something that everybody would be supportive of, but actually this created not only attention, but controversy. There were a lot of people who did not think this was the right thing to do. And that got a lot of attention as well. Some people felt it was demeaning. Some people felt, well, why couldn't it have been an adult woman? Why couldn't it have been something that was touching on the issues of women in the workplace and lower wages? So there was pro and con. But regardless of what you might have thought, the topic of women and women in leadership came to the top of the agenda. People were talking about it. It was in the news. I think they estimated $7 million worth of free media came about just because of a statue of a little girl in downtown. And I know in my home, I'm surrounded by women. I've got two teenage daughters, my wife, and this was something that they talked about. So at the end of the day, I do think that brands who take these kind of bold, risky initiatives, I think this is something that I admire, at least personally.
And so SAP have taken a stand recently as well in terms of how you're presenting your business-to-business platform and the role in solving societal or world issues.
Absolutely.
Talk about that too.
Yes, I have another picture
that's
going to show up there. You also may have seen this TV spot. SAP's purpose is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. And the way we do that is by helping our customers run at their best through innovation. This campaign talks about how best-run businesses can help the world run better. And there's this wonderful moment that you're seeing here that Clive Owen, our spokesperson, talks about the big problems that we have right now. And he says, and you can see here on the caption, we also have the age-old problem of bias in the workplace. And the actor here says, really, never heard of it. And the guy over here says, really? It's in the news. And she comments, no, I've heard of it.
Yes, a sarcastic note.
Yes. And it really just puts a sweet moment on this, a little bit of attention in a humorous way, but it does put a highlight on it, that this is one of the issues that we have, in addition to issues of environment, in addition to issues of society, that this is a big issue. So we're definitely a big proponent of that, and thinking that businesses are good at solving big problems, and businesses can also work to correct these issues.
Yeah, it's amazing the work that SAP and SAP-Next Gen, Anne and her team, who've been so supportive of our work at Equity Project for All. We're doing a special program with the team in November, bringing together exactly what you talked about, the stories and the urgency to act. So it's going to be great. I want to ask you something interesting, Joe. So you are someone who's a connoisseur of the arts, and as the brand builder, you're inspired by a lot of things. And I asked Joe before in the green room, what what has inspired you as a storyteller, as a marketer? And he explained to me a certain image. You want to share with the group here?
Sure. So this is like when you were asking Wade his personal journey.
Your personal journey.
This is a little bit
There we
my
go.
personal journey. I did not live in 18th century or 19th century France here, but when I was a kid, a student in Paris, I was broke and I needed to earn some money, so I gave tours at the Louvre. And this painting is in the Louvre Museum, and it's a big painting. It's as big as this wall. It's, you know, it's 20 feet high and 30 feet wide, and you feel like you're there. And this was really, it sounds corny, but it is true. It is the moment that I started thinking, wow, images can tell stories. This story is actually quite a controversial one. This, you know, you're seeing here Napoleon's coronation, and this was a big deal because France had just had a revolution where they threw out the king, but the king is back. And the king's not only back, but he's supersized. He's now an emperor. The church was thrown out, and now the church is back. You can, you know, everybody's in Notre Dame here. So the power of images here to tell a story and to do what State Street's Fearless Girl did and different, you know, things that you guys are doing is this prompted people to talk and to get, you know, conversation going. And the conversation that Napoleon wanted with Jacques Louis David, who's a painter here, was this guy, this little corporal from Corsica, is now a big deal, and this is a monumental moment, and clearly he's in charge because he even got the Pope to leave Rome to come to this coronation, but he didn't get to crown him. So my personal journey, I learned when I was young that, you know, a picture can be worth 1,000 words, and this is mine.
It's definitely a beautiful picture. Karuna, you had a different type of image or a different type of story. What was the, you know, story or image or person that you think kind of has motivated you?
Yeah, so I chose, you know, and it's interesting, we always tend to look back for our, you know, things that have inspired us. And this to me is a look forward because I had the opportunity, I don't know how many of you have heard Reshma Sajani, she runs Girls Who Code. And she does an amazing TED Talk, and I actually had the privilege of seeing her speak in person, you know, well before she actually did the TED Talk. And she's just an incredibly inspiring woman who really talks about teaching our girls to be brave, not perfect. And that theme has really resonated with me because a lot of what, as we were doing the Always work, you know, and I myself have 2 daughters, you know, really seeing the transformation, and we were talking about this earlier as well, you know, in our girls when they go from that, you know, 10-year-old that can conquer the world and is not afraid to try things and fail, to feeling like you have, you know, and as you see that transformation happen and they get into their later teen years, it becomes all about being perfect. And, you know, obviously with social media and all of the different influences, it's more and more about curating yourself to be this level of perfection you're trying to achieve, which makes us much less likely to take risks and to try things. And so she does an amazing talk. She's really inspired, I think, lots and lots of women, you know, and she talks about her story of having, you know, run for office, political office, and not made it. She was an attorney when she started and did that because, you know, that's what she was told she was supposed to do. And she's really forging, and she's young and she's, you know, really vibrant and a great storyteller. So I felt like, you know, thinking about the women that are going to lead us forward, I found her story and the way she tells it to be really inspiring. And, you know, she obviously, we spent some time talking about the Always work as well. So that was my pick.
Yeah, that's great. Reshma's a real inspiration for a lot of young girls realizing that, you know, they can code too. Yep. Talking about stories and strong women have influenced, I know, Wade, you were telling me a story about a very strong woman and what she made you do.
Yeah, so the person who I chose to inspire me is Bell Hooks, and there's a story there. So I used to work at an LGBT youth serving organization called the Hedrick Martin Institute, and I was a supervisor there. And I was given a young woman a directive, and we didn't agree on it, and I was trying to to calm her down, and I called her sweetie. And at that point in my life, I wasn't aware enough to understand why the term sweetie was so problematic. And she looked at me, she said, "Don't ever call me sweetie." And my supervisor at the time called me to her office, and she asked what happened. I took her through this story, and she slid me a book. And it was a book by Bell Hooks called Feminist Theory from Margin to Center. I read the book, I went back to her office, I said, "Womp, womp, womp, womp." She said, "Oh, read it again." So I read the book the second time. I went back to her office. She asked me more questions about the book. I said, "Womp, womp, 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 womp." She said, "Oh, read it again." So I read it the third time. And as I finished it, I said, "Oh my God, this book is about me." And that book was really the catalyst to, one, for me to start naming myself as a feminist, but to also start to really interrogate my own actions, right? For me to understand like what it means when a man says that I became a gender equality advocate after I had a daughter, right? That sounds great, but it's actually a form of benevolent sexism, right? Like all of these different things that I as a man have never actually wrestled with, feminism really opened up an entire world for me. So my work now is to try to expose men to feminist literature, feminist thought, feminist theory, for us to really do the work to interrogate ourselves.
So there was no time in history when women had to really, come forward and take power. Then a certain time, I won't say the time, but you can tell me the image that you have in your mind. And we can go through a little bit of that.
Sure, Rosie the Riveter.
World War II.
She's great.
Right. She's been being used a lot lately. But for me, I came upon Rosie when I was studying women in American history at Syracuse University, where I went to college. I was studying with an unbelievable teacher, Professor Thompson. It's so great when somebody makes such an imprint on you, you never forget them. And really, for the first time, my mind was opening up to the realities of, here I am going to graduate from college, and wait a second, I'm not going to be able to get a job and rise to the top and have a family and it'll be easy. And so in this study, she asked us to go back and uncover women's journey through the workforce. And that's where I found Rosie, and she asked me to interview if I knew any women that had worked during this time, if I could interview them. And believe it or not, my grandmother and her best friend Vera, during the time, got jobs and were asked, to work at factories during World War II to really help this country move forward, because the men were at war, and they did. And my grandmother, she was married and had children, but Vera was not. And so when the war ended, Vera was told she had to leave her job. Vera happened to be extraordinary at her job. And luckily for her, the man that she worked for realized how much better his life was having Vera as his number two, managing this factory. And insisted that Vera be kept on, that her job not be given to a man. Vera had to then give up her life as a in her mind, being able to have a family and it all, but stood for women being able to be in management positions. And I looked at from where Vera, my grandmother, had come in the 40s to where I was then in the 80s, and said, I need to continue this fight for the women who have started it, back in the 20s. I was upstate New York, and I went and saw where the women got the vote, and I was like, I have to keep this going, and that's almost 100 years in 2020. It'd be only 100 years, bless you, that women have the vote here, and we still have more to go. But having two teenage daughters, as many other people on the panel do, I am seeing that the next generation below me, boys and girls, they have a different perspective, and everything that's going on. My daughter's a freshman at Penn State, and she's writing papers about things that are happening now with gender equality as part, the whole class is writing it.
And I have something very exciting to share.
Oh.
That today we have, like you said, history and women from back then, Seneca Falls and all that. Today we have something very special for the audience. As part of this event, we've been collaborating with the Procter & Gamble Alumni Network and the Procter & Gamble Foundation, around gender equality and empowerment of women. And today I noticed every one of you are wearing some special bracelets. And as part of that, every one of you are going to get a bracelet that's made by woman entrepreneur from Uganda. This is made out of recycled paper and is an example of wearing equality. It's not just what equality looks like, it's what equality feels like. And you can make a difference. Take one of these next time you need to buy a gift for a sister, friend, wife, girlfriend, or anyone. Think about, one of these, because this is just an example of how we can make a difference with our actions. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists for all their incredible stories, for being great equity crusaders, and I hope all of you have taken a few insights from this discussion today to make a difference. Thank you, everyone.